During the Geula, will we lose our free choice? That's a very good question. Well, why do you say during the Geula? Why not after the Geula? Or, at the time of the Geula? During the times of Mashiach. Well, I would say that we won't lose our power of Bechira, because that's something essential that's planted in every Jew. And the Alter Rebbe says in Likutei Torah that the Bechira comes from a very, very high level in Hashem, what you might call the very essence of Hashem, and he places that in the soul of every Jew, Davka. But that's what's written it's written in Bereshis, after the Chet HaEgel, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu says that he has to cause man now to pass away, because he said, if I'll leave him, then V'hoyo ke'echad mimenu, he will be one like us. In other words, he'll be like the Eibishter. Because the only true choice is in the hands of the Eibishter in his essence. Because all other beings are somewhat influenced by certain circumstances. And therefore we can't really say that they have what's called choice. They're, as it were, they're influenced by their needs or by their requirements or by what they feel to be their requirements. And that's what leads them into their choices of action. But Hashem, that he's completely beyond all limitations, and he's not limited by any aspect of the creation, God forbid, and he's completely beyond all limitation, so he can choose one way or the other. And therefore we have to say that because he's completely beyond any limitation or any form of attribute that we may want to apply to him, therefore he's everything that Hashem revealed to us through the Torah is really his choice. It's not right to say that he did anything without choice. Even Hashem's will is his choice, because he doesn't have to want, God forbid. There's no reason why Hashem should want. But the fact that he has a will, that's also his choice. So the fact that we have choice is because we're from a very essential level within Hashem. You follow? Therefore, the neshamas, they come from, the Alter Rebbe says, in the second parak of Tanya, that we come from a level which is virtually Hashem's essence, or close to it. And therefore, since he has unlimited choice, therefore we also have. And that's a big trick, that it looks in human life as if we don't. But there are certain levels on which a Jew does have choice. And it's brought down in the great Sfarim that a Goy, even though he does have certain levels of choice, because if he doesn't, then we couldn't punish him, or we couldn't offer him challenges, do this way or do that way. If not, God forbid, then there'll be this and this. The result, if we didn't hold that he had some form of choice. And therefore it's clear in the Rambam and other places that Pare, for example, had choice, and other great Goyim had choice, and therefore they were visited with what they were visited. So the difference is that a Yid has absolute choice. And we can suggest that a Goy has got choice in reference to things which have to do with the development of the world, or the settlement of the world, and what you might call the upkeep of the world. And therefore we find that the seven commandments which are given to the Goyim, you can't talk about a commandment unless the person that you told to do that has got the choice to do opposite. If he can't do otherwise, then it's not a commandment, and it's not shaykh afterwards to demand of him why didn't he do it, because if he has no choice, then you can't demand of him later why didn't he choose the right way. And therefore, but it appears in the Gemara in the sector of Avodah Zarah, it appears that the Gemara, that the Eibishter in the future, and not only in the future but already in the past, he's already held the Goyim to their judgment as to why didn't they keep the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. which means that they do have some sort of choice, the Goyim. But if you look carefully at all the Sheva mitzvahs which have been given to the Bnei Noach, then you'll find that all of them have got to do with what you might call the preservation of ordered creation. For example, except for the one not to follow Avodah Zarah. But even that, to a certain extent, is it's got somebody who follows Avodah Zarah is missing the whole point of the creation, and to a certain extent, he will maybe base himself on certain laws, denying the fact that all laws of human conduct are to come from the Maker of the world. So therefore, even that's got to do with the way the Goyim are commanded in Avodah Zarah, has also got to do with the simple basis of what you might call a preserved world. Yidden have got another form of choice altogether. Yidden have got absolute, what we call free choice, or absolute choice, that when it comes to certain issues, they are not limited by any requirement only to carry out the will of Hashem, only either the will of Hashem or the opposite. And you might say, well, the will of Hashem must have only to do with the goodness and a good world. It does. But there's certain much more higher aims in the creation of the world, which also affect Hashem, as it were. For example, the concept of Dira B'Tachtonim, dwelling place in the lowest of all worlds, is there. A Yid has got the ability to make these things real. And that brings us to the union of Moshiach. One of the things that Jews have been commanded, and it's demanded of Jews, that they contribute to human life in such a way that they will bring to a change in the world, which is called Moshiach. And therefore the Rambam writes that one of the 13 principles, because there were other early commentators that they didn't necessarily agree with the Rambam, they held that the Moshiach was a very important thing, but not necessarily it was part of the actual faith of the Jewish faith. And that was the big chiddush of the Rambam, that he said that the belief in Moshiach is an essential part of our belief in our faith. And if you don't, that's why he writes in Hilchos Malachim, at the beginning of Perek Yud Aleph, the Rambam, he writes over there a very sharp thing. He said, somebody who doesn't wait every day for Moshiach and doesn't believe in Moshiach, God forbid, he's kofer, not only in the Nevi'im, but he's kofer in Torah Hashem. I heard the Rambam say, if you don't wait every day for Moshiach, and you don't believe that Moshiach is coming, then God forbid you're disbelief in the highest form. So therefore, it comes out that the Jewish, the demand of a Yid is that he must use his abilities and his ability to choose in a way that he will bring the world to its ultimate future, not just preserve good order, that it shouldn't run into what they call nowadays in the modern Hebrew, andromalusia. Have you ever heard the word andromalusia? I don't exactly know what it means, but it means like confusion or how they call it. There's another more slang term, what they call balagan, a complete mess up. That's the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach. The choice of a Yid is to bring the world to its ultimate divine perfection. So therefore, we could suggest, to get back to your question, wandered around the point a little. To get back to your question, we could suggest that when Moshiach will come, after the actual Iskalos of Moshiach, will be like the angels. Now, not that we'll be like the angels, because we'll be much higher than the angels. But what I mean to say that we'll be like the angels, it's brought to consider us a very interesting question. Do the angels have choice? Do the angels have choice, or do they not? Now, there are certain passages in the Gemara which indicate that the angels do have choice, because it's written that one of the great angels, he's called Matat. Well, that's a shortness for his name, but it's written in the great Swan that you shouldn't say their names, so I'm not going to say the full name, but that's a shortening for his name. It's written that he was once punished with 60 flashes of, like this, we would hit somebody with a whip or something. He was hit with a burning divine fire or something 60 times, Matat. So it's written, why did he get that? Why was he punished? because he failed to show when Hashem brought past some revelation of his. He failed to sort of stand up with the absolute swiftness that all the angels stood up, and that he was a little hesitating in his showing of his unbelievable awe and splendor for this particular event, and therefore he got punished. So that tends to indicate that they have the ability to choose behavior. We find even more than that, a little closer to home, that when the angels came to visit Avram Avinu, and they said that they're going over, one angel came to heal Sarah, another angel came, Levasa Sarah, to tell Sarah she's going to have the child. Another angel came to save Lot over there in Sodom, and the other one came lahafoichet Sodom, to how do you call it, turn Sodom upside down, to ruin Sodom. So Rashi brings a whole piece over there. That's a very interesting discussion in Rashi. Rashi says that one malach can't do more than two messengerships. Right? Or rather, he can't do any more than one. I'm sorry, he can't do more than one messengership. He cannot do two messengerships at one go. He can only do one. So there's a whole question that after the angel that came to tell Sarah, so he dropped out because he'd already done his shlichus. Then the other two, they went over, and the malach that went over, and he was accompanied by this other malach. He said to Lot when they arrived, he said, "Mashchisim anachnu es hamokim hazeh." We are destroying this town. So that raises all sorts of questions. What was he doing talking in the plural? He's only supposed to be one. Was he including the other malach with him? And also there's certain diukim in Rashi which tend to indicate that maybe there was like sort of partnership in the other two things that were done. But that's another question in understanding how do the malachim actually do the shlichas. But he said, "Mashchisim anachnu es hamokim hazeh." So it's written that they were punished for that. The malachim were punished for having said that. They said, "We are destroying this place." So they're not supposed to have said that. They're supposed to have said Hashem is destroying the place, and we are His messengers. So we are destroying the place. So it's written that they were punished for that. So we see that the malachim seem to be punishable, unless they know what they're choosing. Once again, they can't be punishable. So one of the teruts, so it follows that the malachim do have choice, and then it's written in other places, even in the Chassidus, it's written that the malachim don't have choice, that they're just automatic beings, that they just do things that Hashem gives them without end, but they don't actually have any choice in the matter. So the answer that's given, there's certain places in Chassidus where it appears that there's an answer given to that. And what the answer is, that really the malachim do have choice. Deep inside, it's their makeup and the way they have to make them, they have choice. But they are in such a situation where they're so exposed to Gilui Elokus, and it's just so obvious and so clear what is the real situation of the creation, that it would never occur to them to use their choice. Now, what the Gemara tells us is that Matat got this punishment of 60 stripes for this divine light, but because he used his choice even in front of the unbelievable revelation of divinity, he for a moment, sort of hesitated or something, and that was considered a tremendous fault on his part, tremendous sin. But not that he really, God forbid, questioned anything to do with the Abish or anything of that nature, or his authority. It was only like a lacking in his showing of unbelievable bitul, as it's called in Siddur, to the situation of the divine. Therefore, that's what we can suggest, that when Mashiach will come, we'll all have Bechira. Our Bechira can't be taken away from us as long as our Neshama is left in us. Because our Neshama is a Chelek Elokam Mimal, and that's what the Alter Rebbe says in the Likutei Torah, that our Neshama gives us, and has within itself, this union of unbelievable Bechira, unlimited, Bechira Chofshiyah, a free Bechira altogether. So, unless the Abish would take away our neshamas when Mashiach would come, which Chas v'Shalom is very unlikely, then he's not going to take away our choice. But on the other hand, it's likely to say that we won't have much free choice when Mashiach comes, because everything will be just so clear, and Elokus will be so revealed, and there'll be such an unbelievable intensity of divine interference in everything that happens. Obviously, I mean, it's anyway like that. It's just that we don't, see it clearly, because everything that happens is Hashgacha Pratias, and everything that happens is Hashem. Just so we don't notice that. When Mashiach will come, then that will be clear to all of us, every second. And therefore it's likely to say that we won't use that Bechira, even though we'll have it. And therefore, it could be that there'll be certain people that will hesitate, or they won't show the right bittul to Mashiach or something, and they will have to face a reckoning because of that. You follow? And that will come mitzad Bechira. But as the situation develops, then we have to assume that the likelihood of anybody using his Bechira for evil or for not good will gradually disappear. We will still have the power of Bechira. And maybe we could say in a higher way. I don't know if it interests anybody, but I could tell you a slightly higher idea of this whole idea of using the Bechira. For example, there's a famous question beneged to tzaddikim. What the Gemara brings down in Masechta Bava Basra, the Gemara says that there were certain tzaddikim that they had unbelievable achievements. And one of them is that it's written about 3 or 4 of the early great tzaddikim that they didn't have any Yetzer Hara. They didn't have any Yetzer Hara. They didn't have any evil influence. So it comes along Tesis over there, and Tesis, if they didn't have any Yetzer Hara, then what's the mila of their avodah? If they didn't have any evil influence, then what's it mean to say that they served Hashem and they were tzaddikim? If I didn't have any evil influence, I would also be like them. So Tesis says, no. Tesis says, they worked against their evil influence. And they worked against it so unbelievably that at a certain point Hashem gave them a reward and he took it away from them. There come along certain people and they say, well, that's unbelievable. They took away the Yetzer Hara at a certain point. What is the advantage of their service from now and further? Now they don't have any Yetzer Hara. From now and further, what's the point of having them? If they don't have anything to fight, then what's the mila of their avodah? Can you understand the question? In other words, that avodah, service of Hashem, only has any worth if you've got something that's working against you. And that's the Indian of the Yetzer Hara. Something is working against you. Or if you've got some choice, that was the point of your question. If you have some choice and you choose for the good, then we can say, oh, you've served Hashem. So the answer that I once heard from one of the great mashpiyim here in Eretz Yisrael was that he said the same question can be asked in Tanya. He said the same question is that you got the tzaddik gamur. The Alter Rebbe says a tzaddik she'ena gamur, and there's a beinoni, and then there's God forbid, the Rishoy, as you go down the line. Then there's at the top of the line is the tzaddik, and the tzaddik gomer, what he doesn't have any Yetzer Hara, and he doesn't have any, on the contrary, all the Yetzer Hara and all the evil within him has been mahapich le'toiv. He's reversed it completely le'toiv. What's the mile of his avodah? From there on, from that point on, that he got rid of all the ra, what's it shy to say that he's a tzaddik? I mean, so he is. But what's the point of his avodah? What sense does his avodah make? Not a bad question. So, as I heard, the teretz was given, and anybody who knows the way the great Rebbeim and the tzaddikim in Lubavitch, how they function, then you'll be able to understand this teretz. And that is that the choice.
Says like Misang and Kamigim are sweet.
Sweet,
and then there's the bitter that's made sweet.
Yeah, the bitter is made into sweet. Yeah, no.
Is that the same thing?
Yeah, he's already done that. The tzaddik is already finished with it. He's already changed the bitter into sweet. So now what's he doing from now on?
So there's 2 Tanugim version. No, there's a sweet one, and there's the bitter that makes sweet.
No.
So he's a sweet to begin with.
He keeps the whole time making the bitter sweet.
No, he's sweet to begin with. He's sweet.
Yeah, okay, we're talking from that point and further. What is his avodah? That's what we're asking. What is his avodah Hashem? He's already made the bitter into sweet.
Just to begin with sweet.
Just being what he is.
So it says
Well, that's wonderful. Why should he be considered, the greatest of all the age? Hashem? I mean, what's he really doing? I mean, look, nobody denies that that's the most unbelievable human achievement. Right? We're talking about from that point and further, what is the big, what you might call nachas ruach, to Hashem in his avoid. So I heard from this great chassid that he said that a person like that has reached that level. He can just go further and further and further, higher and higher, and not have anything to do with this world. In other words, you ever heard of the idea of an ivory tower? You ever heard of an ivory tower? He could just lock himself in an ivory tower, and he could just go higher and higher and higher and higher, and never have anything more to do with this whole Andramalusia, which is called this world. Right? He doesn't need anything to do with it. He just go high. He just sit with all this for him, Hakadoshim, and with his talis and tefillin, and they were tacha certain people before the Baal Shem Tov, that's tacha what they did. You know the famous story of the Baal Shem Tov with the Porush? You guys don't know the story. There was a Porush, the Porush and the Baal Shem Tov. You guys don't know the story. I don't know if this is supposed to be a session about stories. Anyway, whatever, it could just be a parush and go higher and higher and higher. The fact that
What's a porush?
a parush, somebody separated off. Parush wasn't lifrosh, to separate from this world. Somebody is completely and utterly separated off. There's nothing to do with this world. It sits in talis and tefillin the whole day. Doesn't know anything about anything. Fasts the whole day. Doesn't have to do with anything. So he could be like that, and on the contrary, he just go higher and higher. He doesn't have any, he doesn't have any Yetzer Hara. He doesn't have anything which would bother him whatsoever. But nonetheless, what does he do? He says, no, the Eibusher wants me to be down here. He wants me to be lamata b'zeho ilam, and he wants me to work on this world and to show others the way to battle with this world and to make this world into a dira b'tatoinim. Therefore, he could be completely away and up in the and he definitely comes down into the world in order to fight the Eibishter's fight. But that's one of the things that Moshiach does. Velasa is dira b'tatoinim, and this old chassid finished by saying that is the greatest effort, and that is the greatest self-sacrifice that makes our fight with the Yetzer Hara like a peaches and cream deal. That somebody who could reach that height, and nonetheless he gives himself away altogether to Dafki for the sake of Hashem, to be lamata and to busy himself with all the inonim of the world, that is Yisurim Haki Gedolim, but nonetheless, what he does, because that is the Kavanah Hoel, that is the Kavanah Hoel Yeino. And that's with our Rebbeim. That's the Rebbeim Lavavis. They could have just gone completely out, and yet nonetheless they Dafki wanted to be Lamata Mata and to bring Moshiach B'Pearl Mamish.
Then they say that in the times of Mashiach, we're all going to lose our Yetzer Haras. Are we all just going to be just trying to go up?
We won't lose the Yetzer Hara in the sense that power. You see, we have to on that basis, we have to define what is the Yetzer Hara. What do we mean by the Yetzer Hara? So one of the explanations in Chassidus is that every human being was created with what we call akuyach hamisaveh hapashut. The Alter Rebbe brings it in the Likutei Torah in Parashat Chukas in reference to the Paraduma, that everybody has what's called a deep desiring power. And if you've ever noticed that what makes a human being function the whole day is he's like desiring something. He's pushing towards a desire, and that moves him forward. If he gets that, but he's got to have another desire. He's got to have this. He's got to have that. In other words, if you examine your day-to-day life, then your whole life is a demand. It's I need this, I need that, I need I need even your spiritual things. It's also part of a sort of a demand that you have, and a form of a taiva and a goal that you've set yourself, and you must have it at all prices, isn't it? You guys learn mamish with, but anyway, that's the way it's supposed to be. It follows the Lefisa that our whole life is based on what we long for or desire for the whole time. We're moving into different fields of longing. So it's written that the Eibishter put inside every human being, he put inside him a power to long. And that power is not really evil, and it's not good. Well, maybe it's good in the sense that it's not evil, but it's not necessarily perfectly good. And what the Eibishter does when you're born, he takes that power and he dresses it up in a whole series of levushim, what are called garments. So that when you come out of your mother's womb into the world, you've already got this whole series of things where you run after gashmiya stuff. You run after physical things. You run after things which are sweet. As a child, automatically, and he wants tremendously this unbelievable taiva for food and for things like that, and he's not prepared to overlook it. And so it's written that the Eibishter could have placed in him other, because that power to want is literally able to have different shapes. But the Eibishter puts in that's the trial that we face in life, that from the moment we're born, our power of taiva, power koach habasava, goes in that direction. And that's called the Yetzer Hara. That's what we call the Yetzer Hara. But if you're careful in Tanya, Perek Tes, and Perek Yud, you'll see that the Alter Rebbe says you have to take away those garments, or those levushim, that are on that power, from the time it was born. You've got to take them away. If you remove all those levushim, then you've got like a simple power, which it just goes forward all the time, yearning for new goals, or for new achievements, or for new fulfillment. And so then it can be turned into Kedusha. That's what the simple basic pshat in Tanya of lahafich is a ra l'toiv. Lahafich is a ra l'toiv, that you take off all the garments from this power of Ra and you put it into the toiv. So it doesn't mean it will lose the Yetzer, but the Yetzer won't be Ra anymore. He'll be toiv. In other words, that demanding power will be a demanding power for the positive. It'll be a good and will, just like you long now for a piece of cream cake or something. I'm not saying that you do, but I mean, let's say a person desires certain physical needs, physical times. When Mashiach will come, the world will be built in such a way that people will want high things and spiritual things with that same power that they want now the material. And that's what the Rambam says, that lo yeh esek kol ha'olam kuloi das boirom, that the whole busyness of the world will be only the longing of the individual will be to gain knowledge of Hashem.
But we're still going to be like working.
I'm sorry?
But we're still going to be like working 6 days in the Shabbos. We're still going to be working those 6 days in the Shabbos.
Yeah, but the working will be different. You understand? The working won't be the way that we work now, because that will all be done by the Goyim. As they state in the Gemara says that Masechet Brachos, that all the simple, what you might call manufacturing work of the needs of humanity, that'll be taken care of by the Yumas Ha'olam. Also in a different way than now, but that'll be taken care of by them. Your work in the 6 days will be going higher and higher in spirituality, and Shabbos will be an even greater elevation in those things. I mean, that's written clearly. So I see you forgot your question.
No, I know.
You must have forgotten your question.
No, it was relevant to before. I don't know.
Huh? Yeah. It's a miller. That's the situation how it'll be when Mashiach will come. That we will work in the 6 days, but it'll be a different type of work. It'll only be struggling to go higher the whole time.
We'll still have the need for like food and stuff.
Huh?
We'll still need food, right?
Yeah, only up until the Zman of Tchias HaMeisim. After Tchias HaMeisim, then we won't need food. No. The Gemara says clearly, the Gemara says, Masechet Brachos, ha'olam habo ein bo lo achila v'lo shasiya. It appears that you hold that there'll be sheina. You hold that there'll be sloth. Ha'olam habo ein bo lo achila v'lo shasiya. And so, what does the Gemara mean by the word Olam Habo? It's taught it says it means when will the Meisim, the dead will get up. So then the body won't need food anymore. I put down in one of the first Maimon that the Rebbe Rashab said in public And towards the end of the Maimah, he says that a person even now, that's what he writes, he said a person even now can train his body and can train himself in such a way that he won't really need food. And that he will live from the ruchnias, he'll live from spirituality. And if the spirituality will mean enough to him, that will cause his body. You guys don't know the story, but there was one of the great the Rebbes are not of Lubavitch, but this story is brought in Maimorim from our Rebbeim, because he was from the base Chernobyl. You heard of Chernobyl, base Chernobyl? So the Chernobyl, there's a Kabbalah very early on that Moshiach will come from base Chernobyl, that Moshiach will come out. So when the Alter Rebbe heard that, as he ran over, and he chose one of the babies, you know the whole story. He ran over, and they had a lot of, when I say a lot, I mean, they had some of the small children from their children's marriage who were in this room, in cots. So the Alter Rebbe really picked one, and he said, that'll be mine. So Lubavitch has got a shaykhs to base Chernobyl. Lubavitch got into the household of Chernobyl. The Alter Rebbe, as soon as he heard this from somebody, that Moshiach is going to come out of base Chernobyl, he made a beeline to Chernobyl, and he got one of the children. That was the Rabbi Yisrael Cherkas, he was called. He was a son of the Chernobyler, and he was a very great person. The Mittler Rebbe's daughter married the Cherkasa, and that's our connection with Chernobyl. Oh yeah, so about Chernobyl, so Rav Nochem Chernobyler, he was a Talmud of the Baal Shem. Rav Nochem Chernobyl actually saw the Baal Shem Tov. He was older than the Alter, because the Alter Rebbe saw the Baal Shem Tov when he was 3 years old. But after that, he didn't see the Baal Shem Tov anymore. They said Rav Nochem Chernobyler was very fat. Mom was very big, physically, and yet they used to see him and he never ate. They used to follow him. Where does he eat? How does he get so fat? And they never found him eating. Occasionally would take him sometimes a little weeny bit of something, just to keep himself alive. But he never seemed to eat, and certainly not fattening things. He did sort of pack away a lot of carbohydrates and all this sort of stuff. They couldn't figure what's he doing so fat. So one day they said to Rav Nochem Chernobyl, how come that you're so big, and you don't seem to, we've checked you out, you don't seem to eat. So he said, I've become fat from saying Omen Yehesh Mei Rabbah. He said, saying Omen Yehesh Mei Rabbah made me fat. In other words, that his whole tainu, his whole effect on his body was from the spiritual. So the Rebbe Hashab says over there that you can affect your body and you can make your body have the nurturement from the spiritual. When B'tchias HaMesim, that will be the situation. But during the time of what's called the Yemois HaMashiach, prior to Tchias HaMesim, so then we will eat. Then it's mashma that we will eat. Yeah. But of course, we'll eat in a very different way than what we eat now. We won't pack away a lot of carbohydrates and all that sort of thing. No, we'll eat in a very divine and elevated fashion, but we will eat. Yeah. But once there's Tchias HaMesim, then the body will live. But it's a very fascinating thing. You might say, well, maybe the body will be different when Tchias HaMesim. If we won't need to eat, and we don't need all these organs and everything inside the body, which have got to do with eating. So it's written in Maimorim from the Rebbeim that the body will stay exactly as it is, with all the organs, with everything inside it, because they're all part of the unbelievable kedusha of Hashem's. And the aim of a Yid is to make all those things in his body also holy. So that by the time we reach the time of Tchias HaMesim, then our bodies will be holy, even what you call the kishkitz. You've ever heard of what the kishkitz is? It's what do you call them? I've forgotten the word. What? Intestines?
Internal organs, the guts.
Yeah, no, it's the big thing, the big intestines. Yeah, the intestines is even those are supposed to be holy. Even the intestines are supposed to be holy. Andre. All right. So, what's the next question? You've had enough of the time. You? Okay. Did you get him before him?
No, it doesn't matter.
He gives you
It's a
right of.
two-part question. I believe the Rebbe himself said, I don't know what's holding up Mashiach. I'm not sure what year that was.
The Rebbe said on a number of occasions.
All right, so if you assume that the Rebbe is Me'ach, who is Vadai Mashiach, how could Mashiach himself say that about himself, that he doesn't know what's holding up? If he's Mashiach, he's got to know everything. And why not just tell us what to do then, or what's Hashem's plans? Why not just put the cards on the table? And the other part of the question is, all Nun Aleph, whatever Nun base, if you see at the end of the letter that the Ramach, the Rebbe is always stressing miyad, miyad, miyad. That word, it bothers me. Miyad. Is that like a prophecy, a request, a wish? It's just Tom saying, no. How could he say miyad? And here we're sitting here now 15 years later, it's not miyad. How was it said, what does it mean? How do we look at it now?
How do you look at the word miyad?
Yeah.
When the Rebbe said over there 15 years ago, and he said miyad.
And it's not miyad. It was
Okay.
a prophecy, a wish. He said
Oh, it was a prophecy, that's for sure.
So,
There were no wishes by the Rebbe. Anybody who knew the Rebbe, he wasn't into wishes.
the first
That's
question,
that's why, as you might say, by the Polish Rebbe. There's the thing what they call glances mit die Augen. Have you ever heard that? They make their eyes look, they go very high. That's called a wish. The Rebbe wasn't into glances mit die Augen. When the Rebbe said he meant Pashtas, everything he said. Is the first question that you ask, if we'll put down an assumption that the Rebbe is Mashiach, then why did he say what is holding up Mashiach?
I don't know myself what's holding up Mashiach. Is that what he said?
You don't know yourself if he's
He
Mashiach.
he himself said, I don't know what's holding up Mashiach.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's what you're asking. Right.
How could that be?
Yeah. Well, I don't find that difficult to understand at all. Because talk to somebody who is in the business, then he worries about, why is it happening? And on the contrary, the more a person is what you might call involved, and the more he's shayach to the whole thing, the more it tortures him that, the finality cannot occur. But, you see, here we face another what you might call issue that we've got to take into account. And that is that it would appear in all the places that Moshiach, that the Isgalus and the Gilui of Melech HaMashiach is something that we have got to put into. It's not something that's just going to happen, of its own. And it would appear in all the sources, even in the Rambam, where the Rambam talks about purely the halakhic aspect of the coming of Mashiach. It would appear that it's not going to just happen like that without any what you might call a hishtafut from our side. How do you call it? Partnership from outside. And therefore, the coming of Moshiach is a thing that the Yidden have got to a certain extent create certain situations whereby it will be possible for Moshiach to actually be Mishkaleh. You follow? So, the thing is that of all the Rabbeim and of all the Naviim and of all the people in history who've ever spoken about Mashiach, we find that the Rebbe spoke about it in a way of reality and a way of essentiality, that it's already there, it's already ready to occur, it is occurring. You follow? But that's clear, and everybody understood from those statements that the actual final, what you might call knock, hadn't yet occurred. And therefore, the Rebbe's point when he said he can't understand what's holding up Mashiach is that the Rebbe was clearly of the opinion that it's enough. Now, this is a most amazing concept that we don't find by any of the great Gedolei Yisrael. Maybe in certain ways we do, but put it this way, outspokenly clear, like we have from the Rebbe, we don't find by any, and this is due to the fact that the Rebbe's got another aspect to him which makes it very important, his whole connection with the Indian of Moshiach, and that is that the Rebbe is a Novi, he's a prophet. And we find a very amazing thing, that the Rambam writes that one of the halakhic requirements for Moshiach is that he be a prophet. Now, we don't find that if you look up in the laws of the kings, right at the end of the Rambam, where he brings all the details in reference to the coming of Mashiach, he doesn't mention the fact that Mashiach has to be a Novi. But in Hilchos Tshuva, it's very interesting, the laws to do with repentance and Tshuva, over there the Rambam brings a whole piece about Mashiach, and what's going to be like the Moisha Mashiach, and he brings over there that the Mashiach is going to be a Novi Godel. He brings over there that he'll be a great Novi, and he says, Kimat, Korev LaMoshe Rabbeinu, near to Moshe Rabbeinu. And everybody's mystified by that. Why does he say near to Moshe Rabbeinu? Why doesn't he just say like Moshe Rabbeinu? Or the fact that he says that Moshe is going to be a Novi near to Moshe Rabbeinu, well, that tends to indicate that he'll be lacking a little bit. That Moshe will have certain things, but he won't quite make it to Moshe Rabbeinu's level. You follow? But maybe I can deal with that in a second also. But the thing is that we see that he has to be a Novi, and not Stam a Novi, but he's got to be a Novi Godel, a big Novi or a great Novi. So if you're already a Novi, I mean, that's pretty tremendous going. What do we to be a Novi HaGodel? A big Novi, a small Novi, yeah, or, a Novi, how do they say in Yiddish, a Novi here, a Novi there, a Novi. So, what is all that about? So we have to say that one of the inyanim about Moshiach is that not only just he will fulfill certain activities in the world, and he will fulfill certain divine necessities which will lead to the reinstatement of the whole of the Jewish people in the full way that they were Bisman David HaMelech. But he will be gifted with insight and with knowledge of what's going on in the world to the most intimate details, almost embracing like every individual. And that's like, it's an unbelievable thing. And the only place that we find such a power was by Moshe Rabbeinu. We don't find anywhere a person with knowledge of human details and able to look at people and groups of people and just know exactly what is going on with them and what is all about them and what's happening with them and what is good for them and what do they need to be doing and what is the proper instructions to give them to bring them to their ultimate perfection, etc., 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 only by Moshe Rabbeinu. So why is it that Hashem would say that Moshe is going to be a Novi, but he'll be just a bit short of Moshe Rabbeinu? So what's the difference? Moshe Rabbeinu is the only man that actually brought the Torah from heaven down here. And once that's been done, I see we're taking it in turns. Yeah. Once that's been done, then that'll never be repeated for any time in history. Once the Torah was given and Moshe Rabbeinu brought the Torah down into the world, then azah, how did the Alter Rebbe say? The Rebbe said, Nochamol Matan Torah vet nizayin. The Alter Rebbe said, there'll never be another time Matan Torah. Which means that unbelievable change and unbelievable chiddush in human existence, that there was no Torah in the world, and now there is, that is the greatest of all achievements that's ever been. And therefore, even Moshiach won't have to do that. And therefore, he'll be a Novi Korev LaMoshe Rabbeinu. He won't have that unbelievable power that Moshe Rabbeinu had of actually bringing the Torah into, or job, let's put it that way. Unbelievable job of bringing the Torah into the world. Over he will be a Novi Godel, and anybody who saw the Rebbe in action knows that there just can't be any other description of him than that. If you'd see by the dollars, are we over there by the dollars? You got a man standing in the stender, literally hundreds and hundreds of people are flowing past him, each of them demanding some sort of personal attention. Well, you got some problem? Or what are you holding there? Huh? No. No, let him out. By the way, what happened to, what's his name? Daniel. See, he doesn't have a telephone, so he stayed at my house on Thursday night because he couldn't get any bus. There was no bus went to Tzfas on Thursday night, and they're dropping bombs up there the whole time. I mean, just in the street where my son lives, on Moito Shabbos, it was a Katusha fell, mamish a few houses up from where my son lives. He's not living, he's staying with me at the moment because he's got a wife and 2 small children, and they're scared, they don't want to be there with this. But a few days ago, one fell down the other end of the street, and now one fell up at the other end of the street. And Daniel, he stood waiting for hours. You know, he's a very cheetah sort of a guy. You know, he says the bus is coming. You know, he's a very straightforward sort of a guy. And he just stood there over there, you know, all people flowing by, and he's waiting desperately for this bus. And in the end, I found out about him at about must have been about 11:30 at night. He was still standing over faithfully at the bus stop for a bus that was supposed to have come about 2.5 hours ago and hadn't shown up, and there wasn't any bus. So in the end, I took him back to my house. And he spent the night at my house, and he still believes, you know, very well he's going to get the bus, you know. And so we called up in the morning, and they said, yours, this time it's going to be a bus, and there will be going a bus at 9 o'clock. You must be there on time. So as he breakfast went and done, and everything, he's out in Ireland. Since I haven't heard from him, I have never heard a word from him because he doesn't have a telephone, and I can't sort of trace him up. But he hasn't been back either. He hasn't come back. Well, anyway, let's hope it's good.
So telephones are good, Rabbi.
Huh?
Telephones are good.
Yeah, well, that doesn't justify telephones. I mean, it would have just been nice to be able to talk with Daniel. Matter of fact, I think I know somebody in Tzfat. Now that I mention it, I think I might know somebody in Tzfat that they would know where he's staying. Anyway, sure, whatever. So anybody who stood by the dollars, and anybody saw, here hundreds of people are flowing past. Everybody wants a moment of the Rebbe, at least. You know, everybody wants a second of his time. You know. So they would say, boom, do this, do that, bite it, the Rebbe would say, who's next? Next. This one goes, Father, make it sound like that. Who's next? You know. And hundreds and hundreds of blessings and things, all of which came true. And it was amazing. People would come a year later, and they would say to the Rebbe, listen, we asked you for a blessing last year for a child, and bless him. You know, our child will be born. Sometimes they even bring the child with them, you know, hanging onto the child in the line. And the Rebbe, tremendously calmly, he would just look at them and say, oh, here's a dollar for the child, and blessings, and bracha v'atzlacha. Very good. Next, please, you know, next. They have to move on. You know. Here's a guy standing there. I said, listen, Rabbi, I wish you all blessing. I've had this child, you know. And the Rabbi just said, oh, very nice. Another dollar for the child, dollar for you, dollar for here, dollar for that. Thank you. Next, please. Did you ever see it? It's just unbelievable. Because I once, when the Rebbe was giving out these talkers to the Rebbetzin, when the Rebbe was giving out dollars in his house, so I went past, and somehow or another I got to the court behind the curtain or something for a second, and I decided I'm going to stand here and just watch for a while until they throw me out. And it's just to watch the whole thing was unbelievable. You know? I was standing up here and this, that, you know, oh yes, you, yeah. And somebody asked a question, don't bother, do this, do that, thank you. It was unfathomable. You know, you just watched it, and your tongue just dropped out of your mouth. You know, it's impossible to understand how is this happening. You know, how does a person deal, you know, with so many hundreds of things? You know, just boom, 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 one after the other, and without batting an eyelid, to use the expression. You know, the Rebbe remained perfectly calm, and he was loving and kind to everybody. It was unbelievable. And the proof of the pudding is in the eating. You know, a few months later, these people would come back with a blessing that the business went well, and because they're thanking the Rebbe. The Rebbe would say, "Oh, very good. You know, here's another dollar for the business. Yeah, $2 for the business." They come in and say, "Oh, Baruch Hashem, you know, our child got better. So I said, make sure the child has a good education. Thank you. Make sure she learns in a proper cheder. So, thank you. And they thought that Rebbe said, yes, isn't this wonderful? You never heard it from the Rebbe. He was completely calm and unthunderstruck by all the success stories, all these unbelievable success stories of walking past. The Rebbe would just remain perfectly calm. On the contrary, he would give another $1, and give some more stock here, do this, It's just unfathomable, the whole thing. That's a Novi Godel. Was it a Taicha Novi Godel? There were certain Nevi'im that, at certain points, after tremendous preparation in their lives, they said Nevuahs, they said something and they were true, and it was a divine visitation on them personally, and they said things, and that's for sure that's going to be, because that's what they said. And it's a Nevuah. Of Moshe Rabbeinu, it's written that he was the whole time a Novi. He himself didn't know when he was going to be saying his Nevuahs, and therefore he had different dinim altogether, Moshe Rabbeinu. Particularly, as we said, that his prophecies had to do with the bringing of the Torah into the world. And therefore, had he said, Moshe Rabbeinu was always on duty, he was never at a point where he wasn't waiting any second for a divine revelation. The Rebbe was the same, but the Rebbe was in such a way that he was perfectly, almost unnoticeable. It was like, just something that went from its own. So therefore, that's what the Rambam means, that Moshe will be a Novi Godel. He'll be an unbelievably great Novi just under Moshe Rabbeinu, because he won't actually have to bring the Torah down into the world. I mean, the Torah is already in the world, and the Alter Rebbe says it won't be given again. So that's the difference. And therefore, a Novi is somebody that he's able to see everything that's happening and where people are holding, and that's what we can suggest, and not only what is good for them and what is good for the progress of the ultimate purpose of the world, which is to bring Moshiach. And therefore, whenever the Rebbe said, listen, Moshiach hasn't come yet, what he meant by that was that as far as he could see, so much has been done. The Rebbe was never negative. And whenever the Rebbe said, why hasn't Moshiach come? What the Rebbe meant was like this. He meant so much has been done that Moshiach should be here. And here the question is, why has Hashem not given us this unbelievable mercy that we should have Moshiach now? It was not B'derech Klav in a way of complaint to the world. Can you understand me? And it was only in very rare cases where the Rebbe did speak in a form of a complaint, but then he did it in a way of stirring people that they should be encouraged not to fall into that. He never complained directly at them. For example, the Rebbe would say, all you guys are wondering what's going to be with my business, the Rebbe said that this guy says, pointing to himself, that tomorrow morning Mashiach's going to be here, and I know what you guys are thinking, what's going to be with my business, I got to sort something out, I get my money out of the bank, get it into some place, take it with me, make sure it's going to be safe, I'm going to be going over there through all my cases, and what's going to be with my house, and my dealer, with the job I've had. So the Rebbe said, I know you're thinking that, and I know that's what's bothering you, don't worry. And there was one place where the Rebbe said that the American president, the president of America, is responsible for all America, for all the banks or something, that there's some portion or some fraction, huge fraction, of all the money in all the banks in America, what ultimately the American president is responsible for that. That's to say that if those banks for some reason didn't pay your money, then the American president, he's got to pay it. He's got to find the money. The Rebbe said there's such a law. So the Rebbe said, ultimately, what are you guys worried about? You're worried about your money. He said, let the president worry. Let him be concerned what's going to happen to your money. And being as he is the president, then for sure, the Rebbe should look after him. It was, the Rebbe spoke about Mashiach in the most unbelievably real way. It's just an absolute reality. I was there one Shabbos. I was there, Yud Beis Tammuz, in Toshim Mem Hey. I was there, and the Rebbe spoke a big long sikh about the Sforim. Remember, there was a whole problem with the Sforim. And that was just before, a day or two before, the Rebbe said about founding 770 here. They built it in Toshim Mem Hey and Vov, early in Toshim Mem Vov. The 770 building over here. And that's when the Rebbe gave the instruction that they should take money out of the bank and start the whole building. Most amazing thing. So anyway, the Rebbe had been talking, and all of a sudden it was a long Farbrengen Shabbos, It was a big long summer afternoon over there in America. Well, by the way, it's a very fascinating thing. I saw it in a sefer a few days ago that Gimel Tammuz is the longest day of the longest day in the calendar, but the longest of all days of the year is Gimel Tammuz. Very interesting. Anyway, just by the way, it's and Yeshua, that when he stopped the sun, on Gimel Tammuz, that was a big chiddush because he had the longest day of the year, but nonetheless he wanted a bit more, so he stopped the sun. Anyway, it's what we're talking about. I've forgotten. Oh yeah, Yud Beis Tammuz Toshim Mem Hey. So all of a sudden the Rebbe said that Emil to Hashem, that until Mincha, Mashiach will be coming in. And he didn't say can come in or should come in. It was a pity. He was saying that Mashiach will come in. So the Rebbe said, how can we have Mashiach come in on Shabbos? And we'll daven Mincha together with Mashiach. We'll daven Mincha together with Mashiach. So you have people sitting at the Farbrengen hearing these words, And so then the Rebbe said, it's written in the Gemara that Mashiach can't come on Shabbos. He won't come on Shabbos because the whole child about the Tchumim. You know what a Tchum is? A distance that you can go on Shabbos. So Mashiach comes from outside. He's coming from above the Tchum, from outside the Tchum, so he can't. Maybe if he comes through the air. So there's a question. Some people hold that the Tchumim go up into the air, a certain height. If a Melech Mashiach comes in that height, he's still got the Tchumim. And then if he's beyond that height, maybe there's still a shayla about the distances. But therefore, Mashiach doesn't want to get into the whole problem. He won't come on Shabbos. He's up to Gemara Masechta Eruvin. So the Rebbe said that Mashiach is not going to come on Shabbos. So the Rebbe said those words. And it's well known that the Rebbe wasn't the only one who said it. The Rebbe said that Eliyahu Hanavi is going to come together with Mashiach. And Eliyahu Hanavi is an expert. He's great at answering kashiyot. I said to Gemara. The Gemara says he will answer all the kashas we never found any answer to. Eliyahu Hanavi will answer that question. So we said we'll leave that to Eliyahu Hanavi. How did Melech HaMashiach come in on Shabbos? Eliyahu Hanavi will answer that one for us. That's what the Rebbe said. So the Farbrengen went on, and then the Rebbe said a bracha. It got quite late in the afternoon, and they brought in the Rebbe's tender to daven. So where I was sitting, there was a whole group of guys, relatively young Siddim. I even knew some of them, and some of them were from the younger guys over there. I didn't really know them all that well, but a whole big group of guys who were sitting underneath like the Rebbe, and they said, "What's up, davening mincha? What's that?" The Rebbe said, "We're going to daven mincha, in the Geula. It's really going to be Mashiach. We're going to daven mincha, in the time of Mashiach. So how do we daven mincha?" And they, how do you call it? What's the expression? To make a mirror, how do you call it? They revolted. They made a rebellion, and they said, "We're not going to daven mincha until Mashiach comes." And they brought in the stender from the Rebbe, and the Rebbe, Mamish daven Shemana. These guys didn't daven. They wouldn't daven mincha. And then later on, when it got very dark and it was almost time for night, there was a whole group of them went over the back away, in some corner, and they daven mincha. They said, "How can we daven?" They took it so clearly and so absolute simplicity. And the Rebbe said that Mashiach is coming. So there's never been anybody in history who lived that way with Mashiach. It's mamish any second, and it's happening, and it's real, and that's the union of the Rebbe, and that's why he said, what is holding up Mashiach. He meant to say that so much has been done, and so much has been made ready. When you think about it, just look at how Yidden have been working all these generations. And the Rebbe's amazing point was to Hashem and to the Klal Yisrael was ad matai, unto when, isn't it enough? I heard the Rebbe say that many times. The Rebbe said it's enough. And it's unbelievable. We just can't really appreciate the Rebbe. It's hard to imagine the Rebbe's love of Klal Yisrael and the Rebbe's love of Hashem, and that he's so wanted that they should not have any more to do with this Golas. The whole idea of Golas and the fact that Yidden are in Golas was just something untenable to the Rebbe. He just could not take it anymore, and he said there's been enough, and it should finish. And I was there another time, also around about this time of the year, when the Rebbe said Ad Mosai, Bada Verbringen. He said 3 times. And he lifted up his hands like that, and the Rebbe's sleeves dropped down, and his hands were up like that. And he said, Ad Mosai. The Bam is unbelievable. These 3 times, one after the other, with his fists like that. I just once I felt I was just, I felt I was just collapsing. You couldn't take it. It was just some inside. Ad Mosai. You guys would say Ad Mosai after done with another chayas if you would have seen it. Unbelievable. And I remember that he couldn't take anymore the fact that the world had not yet finished everything, and that Moshiach hadn't come. It just was untenable by him, and that was part of the Rebbe's unbelievable greatness as a Novi and as a representative of the whole Klal Yisrael, and his love of the Eibishter and his love of the Klal Yisrael, and his position as he who is going to bring that whole situation into the world. You follow? And it's just unbelievable. It's unfathomable.
Very was Mashiach, is Mashiach, and he knew he was Mashiach, and how could he ask him how long he could tell him?
Listen, I don't think it's a big kasha. It's not a big kasha. You have to know a little bit more. You have to sort of, watch these things carefully and see how it all developed in the statements of the Rebbe year after year. And like I pointed out to this gentleman, the Rebbe wasn't just saying, oh, Mashiach is not coming, what's going on around here. The Rebbe was saying everything has been prepared and everything has been done. Why isn't the okay being given? That was more. It wasn't so much that the Rebbe was saying, where's Mashiach? He was saying it's all there, we just need that, let's go work. We need to go work. So, in other words, the Rebbe's point was that everything is there, we just need to go work. And to a certain extent, Mamish, not long before Gimel Thomas, the Rebbe even said that the go word has also been given. That everything was ready and everything began to move. You want to know what, in my opinion, what one of the problems is? That none of the people, even the Hasidim, will say none. That's terribly unfair. But a large number of the Hasidim didn't take the Rebbe seriously. They didn't really take him seriously. When I say take him seriously, they didn't really accept with its absolute simplicity what the Rebbe said. It was just too much, I said. It was very hard for people to, and even to this day, there's a lot of people who can't quite take it. They can take Hasidus, they can take depths, and they can take Hashem, they can take that there will be Moshiach. You sort of keep it a bit away from me. I can't sort of dig this whole thing. I prefer to sort of remain, frum and fine, but not sort of dig this Moshiach business too much. And one of the problems was, or is, that we don't take the Rebbe seriously enough. We don't take him as the leader of the Jewish people, and we don't take him as Melech Moshiach. For example, I was traveling the other night with a guy in a taxi, not with my usual taxi driver. And he said to me, he was an intelligent fellow. He said, if we'd listened to the Lubavitcher Rebbe. He said, look at the unbelievable mess that this whole place is in. It's just unfathomable. And it's just so, it is. I don't know, the television and the media over here are hammering into people's heads that it's, in another week they're going to have it under control and it's all going to be okay, and some of the more, believing ones, are sort of accepting it. But I don't think it's so simple. The way I understand the situation, it's very, very grim, the matzav at the moment. Halavai, that they should be able to get it under control, but I don't think we should, that shouldn't be our belief. Our belief should be that Hashem is going to make Nisim and He's going to bring Moshiach. If because if you get into this whole Zionist idea of the army and the whole, you dig into a tumor which you never get out of. You understand? You say, ooh, maybe we're going to get a plane from America. Ooh, yeah, we're going to have a bomb. We're going to have this. Ooh, yeah, we'll beat them. We'll do it. Yeah. And that's Heipach Yiddishkeit. You understand? That's mamish the opposite. You got to believe that Hashem is going to do things. You know, Hashem runs the world. And why are these things happening? Because we were not Beseder. Therefore, Hashem is visiting with our own sins. Yeah. You've got to think completely differently, and you must believe that all these things are from Hashem, and that He's going to. And that's what the Rebbe said. How long can the whole Jewish people continue living in a way that that they continue to have to realize that all these things are from Hashem? Ad matai. Until what is the limit? And I've spoken to a lot of people now here, even though I look as I'm rather out of the thing, and I am in a way, but on the other hand, I have my little very delicate pipelines that I tune myself in. I get little ideas of what's going on. And I know how to sieve them. I've been here many years, and I've been in the army myself. So I know how to filter my information. I don't just take everything I hear. Listen, I know what's correct information, what's not, generally speaking. Is people over here, a lot of the people are becoming weary. They're becoming weary. They're becoming tired. They can't anymore. I mean, you realize this is about the 10th war, major war that's been, and bombs have been falling all over the place, and and people are getting killed. One in Islam. How many wars has already been? What's the end? People are tired. People are weary, and therefore a lot of these people who don't believe in Hashem, they've given into these sort of idolatrous ideas of, let's make it one with the Goyim, let them decide, and let's just be good with them, and they even quoted the other night that they asked a few people in Haifa what did they think about the army's action on their behalf or something, they're suffering all these bombs. Are they happy with what the army's doing? So they say, there shouldn't be any army, no, we don't need the army, we have to just sit around the table and make peace, you understand? Now that is the most unbelievably ridiculous, terrible, misguided bilge that could ever be said, by any human being. That's just unbelievable. But why do they say it? Why do they say it? And you sit around with a guy here, they've got 6 years worth of encampments that they built over there. They're under the ground, these guys. They're deep, deep under the ground. And they've got thousands of these rockets. I mean, it's not just a few of them, in their pockets or something. Thousands of them in huge bunkers under the ground. Why? Because the Meshuganim, who was called the Rosh Mamsholah, he said he got to back out Had Study. I mean, that's this whole thing they're talking about. You back out one way and you just let them do it their way. No conditions, no nothing. So they backed out of Lebanon and they just let them. So he gave them 5 years, so they built up this unbelievable empire under the ground, with these rockets and with everything, and with high-scaled weapons, and ready to fight hand-to-hand fight war also, if necessary. I mean, they've built themselves into a tremendous situation over 5 or 6 years. I mean, you can do a lot in a few months nowadays with all the technology. How much more so in a few years? So, I mean, to talk about sitting around and talking with these guys, that's pink to say that you would say that you would bring the biggest dinosaur or dragon, that's ever been created in history, and his fangs are just dripping to pull you apart, and you say, oh no, maybe we'll sit down and talk it over, So, I mean, it's absolute madness. So why do these people say that? Why do they say it to the radio? Because they are weary, they're tired. They're weary. They just don't have any koach anymore. And you have to understand what's happening. There's a deep collapse of the whole mentality of the Israeli public. They just can't anymore. You have to understand the situation. That's what the Rebbe wanted to avoid. The Rebbe wanted to save Yidden and the world from such a situation. And he said, if you take the right action at the right moment, you'll never come to that. And on the contrary, that'll create a world of goodness and of Yosher and Tzedek, and that's a hachana for Mashiach. But doing what these guys have done is just bringing the hands of evil into their fullest expression, and that's what's happening. And that's exactly what's happened. The whole thing that's going on now is like the last throes. It's like the last war of the the Ram mit the Toiv. But unfortunately, the Toiv is tired, and all it can offer is, a few planes, a few divisions of army, and they're also not convinced like they were once upon a time. And the whole thing is very, very grave. So I mean, so I'm traveling with this guy in the taxi, and he says to me, "Oh, if we'd only listened to the laboratory Rebbe, way back then, yes, we'd listen, and then everybody knows now would have been good, but it's too late now, so I can't listen to him anymore now. He's unreal now in this situation." That's what this person said to me. Although all of them will admit to you, even some of the leftists, in their better moments, that had they listened to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, then we wouldn't have got into all this unbelievable mess. And what does it mean to listen to the Lubavitcher Rebbe? From the moment of the 6-Day War and on, that's what it means. Because the Rebbe already started giving his nevuahs from that moment, and before the 6-Day War. One of the most amazing of the Rebbe's nevuahs was, I heard it. I mamish heard that statement that the Rebbe spoke to the children on Lag Ba'omer. The Rebbe came out and spoke just a few days before the war broke out over here, and the Rebbe mamish said everything that would happen. Bull, 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 bull. And he said people should go home. And I remember there was up in the Zal here, there was a couple of the Bochrim, and they got urgent telegrams from their family that they must come home immediately. And they even had tickets waiting for them at the airport, and they even had special things to the consulates of their country. One of them lived in Brazil or in Peru, or where he lived, and he had a whole thing from the embassy and everything. He would just get out like that, and they had to get him out. I remember he was up in the Zal, and his uncle came over here. He had an uncle that lived in the country. He came into the Zal, and he shouted at the Rosh Hashivas up there, and he said, "Listen, you have to let this boy go home. You have no right to keep him. This whole place is going up in fire." That's what it was like before the 6-Day War. Everybody believed that that's what was going to happen in Pashtas. And I remember that, I forget who it was Rav Katz, but then there was another Yid came in, and he was a Russischer. He passed away in the meantime. You guys don't know him. But anyway, Rav Katz, one of the guys said, "Listen, young man, if we can't do anything, we've got a Rebbe." And the Rebbe said that nobody should go home. Everybody has to stay. We can't interfere. You want to take him? There he is. Drag him out and put him on the plane and send him home. He said, "Well, we can't help you. We heard from the Rebbe that we're not allowed to we shouldn't let anybody go." So he said, "No, you can't do this," and he started carrying on. So all of a sudden this Russish Yid came in. He wanted to hear a little story. It's interesting. This Russish, I've forgotten his name. He came in. He heard the whole conversation, and I happened to be standing just a few yards away. Because in those days I used to spend a lot of time in the Zal. Nowadays I don't go there anymore. But I used to spend a lot of time. I used to be in the Zal in the afternoons. I used to answer questions. I used to talk. All sorts of things. And in the early days, I used to spend almost my whole day in the Zal, except for when I was giving shurim. We used to daven in the Zal in the early days. So anyways, I'm standing there not very far away, and all of a sudden this Russish Yid comes in, and he says, "Listen here, he said, what's your name?" And he said, Yankele or Moishle or whatever. He said, "Okay, boys," he said, "listen to what I'm going to tell you." He said, "I'm going to tell you a story." So he said, the story is about Mendele Vitebsky. Mendele Vitebsky, he was the Maggid's big Talmud, that he became like the Rebbe after the Stalkers of the Maggid, and the Alter Rebbe was also like his Chassid, even though the Alter Rebbe was like a friend of his as well. But the Alter Rebbe went to him like, and then he went to Eretz Yisrael. You all know the famous story that he left for Eretz Yisrael. And up in Tveria, they found the Beis HaMedrash where he used to learn, and you can go there and see it. He was unbelievable, mentally Vitebsky. So anyways, one day he wanted to go somewhere, and he took a cab driver, not a cab driver, a coach. He gets to this coach. He says, "Listen here, man," he said, "I'm prepared to pay you extra money, but," he said, "I got to get to this and this place tremendously fast, absolute, highest speed that you can possibly produce." So the guy said, you know, how much we going to do? So he offered him a good matbea, you know, he offered him a good payment. And the guy says, okay, here we go. And they start off and they start going at high speed the whole time. So, you know, Mendel is sitting there the whole time and he says, not fast enough. He says, not fast enough. We're not going to make it. So he starts to go faster. So then Mendel says to him, schmeiß the Pferd. He said, you have to hit the horses. He said, they're not going fast enough. You have to hit the horses. So he starts picking up the stick and he starts whacking the horses, you know, and they're going and they're going and they're going. So Mendel kept saying to him, listen, man, I hired you to go fast. I said, what's this? He said, there's like some sort of old ball game here, you know, what's going on? I said, a poor guy, and he's going crazy with both hands. He's smashing the Pferd with all these whips and these sticks. And the Pferd, the horses are always going crazy. So anyway, they come to this this big downhill section there where you go downhill. So the horses are charging, and it's like coach, and they start going this unbelievable speed down this hill. And so the coachman, he's starting to pull a bit at the reins, you know, it's getting out of hand. You know. So Mendel said to him, listen, what am I paying you for? So I'm paying you to slow down. He said, we've got to get fast, you know, we've got to go quick. So he said, but listen, man, we're on a downhill here. He doesn't understand. He said, no, I don't understand. We've got to go ahead, and we've got to go schnell. In Yiddish, it means fast. You know. That's right. So, you know, Mendel says, let go of the reins, you know, let the horses run. And they just start going this unbelievable speed. So anyway, they come to this turn in the road, and the horses just can't make it, and the car can't make it. They just take off into the air. They took off into the air. They charged through the air, and they end up in this garden, and they made this tremendous chulaban, how they call it, ruination. They ruined this whole garden, all the trees and all the shrubs, and everything, completely ruined. And they went through a tremendous speed, and this guy's got a big sort of glass, you know. He described it with unbelievable. His eyes were all bulgy with, you know, with humor. And he described this guy was telling the story to this uncle. I can't repeat how he told it. It was a tremendous drama, you know. So he said they went through the glass. So he had this beautiful, like, drawing room, you know, with everything. It was all sort of glass at the front. So who's this guy? He was the local poritz. You know who the poritz is? He was the local baron owner of all the land. You know, he was the controller of all the Yidden and all the Goyim and everybody did that. And you know, here they are, they've flown through, they've crushed all his garden, they've gone through the garden, the whole of his, you know, his beautiful lounge and the drawing room crushed and and here they are in the middle of a cloud of smoke, you know, sitting in the middle, and they're barely gradually pulling themselves up out of the ruins. All of a sudden he comes in, this porch with a huge, you know, gun, you know, huge shotgun or something. And he's brandishing it at him, and he's pulling back to, you know, the thing. So the driver, he pops himself up, and he says, "Not me." And he points at Rav Mendel. He says, "Him." Don't shoot me. He said, "Shoot him." So the poet is aiming the gun at the driver. So all of a sudden he says, "No, not me." And Rav Mendel, he swings it around with Rav Mendel there, and then he pulls it and he goes, and it doesn't work. You know, the trigger went, but nothing happened. So he was just absolutely thunderstruck. This is his favorite gun. He's gone hunting with his gun thousands of times. It's always gone off. It always shoots perfectly. It's always hit whatever he aimed at. And here he is, you know, standing in there. And he pulled the trigger. It's all loaded, and nothing happened. So he began to understand that he must have to do with some sort of very special. This must be some very special guy, you know. So in the end, he says to him, "Oh, yes." He said, "Listen here, man. Who are you?" So he starts telling him who he is. So in the end, they reach an agreement that after they get back to wherever they're going, and they do this, and the end, then they'll send him money, and he'll pay the damages and everything. So in the end, he lets him off with great honor. You know, he sends him off. And he writes what's called a star, and he goes the demands some money, and they say, "Oh yes, we'll pay you." And it's all fine, sure. So they're walking out. They get outside the house. All of a sudden, Rav Mendel turns to the driver and he said, "Listen here, that wasn't very nice. What you did, you know, he was aiming the gun at you. You told him to shoot me." He said, "What do you want from me?" You know? So the driver says to him, he said, listen here, Rebbe. He said, the whole way you acted, he said, it's just absolutely beyond any possible justification. And he said, eins from the Beda. He said, if you're a Rebbe, and all this you did was that you did it Baruch HaKodesh, and this whole Meshuggah Nazach that happened was all Baruch HaKodesh. He said, kein koil v'tayt nish kern treffen. In Yiddish that means a bullet won't be able to hit you. It won't meet you. You and a bullet will not be able to get together. And he said, if you're not a Rebbe, if you're not holy, then he said, look what you brought onto us. He said, look, how did you have the right to do a thing like that? You follow? Did you hear the story? So, this Russian guy turns to this uncle, and he says, look here. He said, unser Rebbe. He said, he tells everybody's got to stay. Nobody is going. The bombs are falling out here. Emes of our Rebbe says that you don't go. So he said, what's it doing? He said, it's a young kind. He said, it's a young child, and he's likely to be hit by a bomb. He said, what do you mean? But he's not allowed to go. Elamai, if you're a Rebbe, then you know what you're doing. Yeah? And nothing will ever happen to him. If you're not a Rebbe, then who gave you permission to do things like that? Me not telling you. Yeah? So he looked at the uncle and he said, no, what do you think? What do you think? What's your decision after you heard that story? So he said, you want to know what mine is? He said, I know that he's a Rebbe. If he says to stay, then nothing is going to happen and everything will be betachas such slaves. What do you say? So the poor old uncle was just so completely he just sort of straightened his shirt, and he just sort of put on his hat, He called over the body and said, listen, have a good time, stay here. He said, we're all in the same peckle anyway, and he sort of say all these philosophical things, in a way of acceptance, What can we do, the apes runs world, do this, do this. And he voted, and he parted, and he left us all, he went home, and the bucket was there, and the whole 6-day war went past like a flash, and nothing happened. He said, Miller, that's the whole thing. That's the answer to all these questions. Is the Rebbe the Rebbe, that he knows exactly what he's saying? If he's not the Rebbe, then who gave him the right to get us into this whole thing?
What about the question about the takeoff of Miyad Miyad? Takeoff of Miyad.
So Miyad, you should realize, Miyad has got two periods. First of all, how do we know how much is Miyad? Who are we to know Miyad has to be 10 years or 5 years or 1 year? That's one thing. There's a certain nevuahs that Yeshayahu Hanavi said way back, and they're referring to the time when Mashiach is going to come. And if you read them, they're very urgent, they're very living. So why doesn't somebody say to Yeshayahu Hanavi, what's if it's, it's already 2,000, I don't know how many thousand years, where's your... And yet, if you say that, Chas v'Shalom, you can be in a Chash of Rav Kus. Follow? So, the Rebbe said, Miyad, you're going to hold it 10 years, 15 years. You follow? That's number one. Zweitens is that, like I said before, the whole Indian of Mashiach is a certain partnership there. When the Rebbe said Miyad, and that's what I was trying to get across to these guys, there's a basic problem here that none of us really took the Rebbe